Welcome to the Escape Room Experts Podcast, your source for tips, techniques, and strategies on how to approach escape rooms and how to use them for both fun and team building.
Hi, I'm Sandy Keene.
And I'm Tony Duckett.
And we are the Escape Room Experts coming to you from coastal Oceanside in sunny, really sunny California.
It's back.
The sun's back. Yeah. I'm expecting May gloom or June gloom, May gray. So we thought we would talk to you today about a topic that we enjoy chuckling about. Most escape rooms, when you go in, have lockers.
Right.
And the purpose of the locker is?
To make sure that you don't have any technology when you go in. And you're probably wondering why.
Yeah, so most of the time you go and they say, could you lock up your phones? And it's not because we don't want you taking pictures inside the room, although we don't want you taking pictures inside the room. But there's a reason.
Well, right now, everyone seems to want to Google everything. And these rooms are really, we've talked about this in other podcasts, these rooms are really about you working together in proximity, close proximity to one another. Not working across a network.
And
right?
using your brain.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea behind an escape room isn't that I'm the fastest on my phone. The idea behind an escape room is I can use my brain to figure stuff out, or as I would say, to figure shit out, right?
Right. So I'll tell you what's really funny. I think that there might be a new escape room where people are doing something in two different rooms, and because that's how people work now. They work across the globe. That might be an interesting way to do it.
But
that's not
don't do that to the puzzle master.
Right. But that's not what we do here. What we want to do is put you in the same room and have you solve problems together, hand to hand. So I like to call this hand-to-hand combat. We've got smartphones have given us the opportunity to not have to be so smart individually.
Yeah, smartphones, dumb people.
Exactly.
That's kind of what happens.
I didn't want to say that, but I'll let you say it.
So, and you know, what's funny is, because we both have kids, is the idea that there are things that our kids don't know how to do. And
right.
when we put them in our escape rooms, we see very clearly the things our kids do not know how to do. For instance, Google Maps.
Yes.
So what has Google Maps done? We have one room where we have maps. People have absolutely no idea how to use them.
Well, it's kind of like in your car, right? Once you start using your navigation system, you forget how to get to your aunt's house because the navigation says turn left here. Well, we want you to actually realize that you need to turn and pay attention to the clues that are in front of you and not be guided. It's kind of why I don't like TV.
Yeah.
TV kind of gives it to you, right? And
as opposed to reading a book.
As opposed to reading a book where you wind up going on a journey on your own. So it's an interesting perspective.
We are old, man. We're so old. Okay, tell the Google story that you tell.
Well, I have a dear friend of mine who works for a large investment firm, and she's the head of diversity and human resources. And she calls me and says that, look, I get the best of the best here. Go to Harvard, Princeton, Brown, all those great schools are out there, and they bring the best of the best in. But how do I decide which of these kids I'm going to bring in? Because they all have great grade point averages and they came from great institutions. He says, I always ask them one question. If I ask you, first of all, when you come here, you're not going to be an investment banker right away. You're going to be a research analyst. So when you do that, how would you do the research if I told you could not use Google? And the fascinating thing is, she asked me, do you know what the number one answer is? I would call a friend who has Google.
I love that.
Which is fascinating to me. And by the way, and this is a Tonyism, so this is not true. So anybody who works for Google, don't come looking for me or Wikipedia. The internet is not a source of truth necessarily. It's a source of information.
Right.
Right. So people go out because you can post anything you want. So the purpose of that little activity she has is to see if you know how to search for the right answer, not for an answer.
Yeah. So, and I love that story because, and Tony tells it all the time at the escape room, because what we find is as soon as we take the phones away, there's this look of panic on people's faces, especially teens. So everybody comes and we say, okay, before you get started, we're going to ask everybody to lock up your cell phones, smartphones, any type of technology. And they lock it up and they go, well, what if we need it in the room? Mm-hmm. And they do. There are many things in our rooms that if they had their phone, they would absolutely use it.
You know, it's funny that if you notice, it's not just this kind of had a moment, right? Just a moment. No one has ever asked us, when they still have their phones in their hand, no one ever says, so where do you start?
No.
It isn't until you take the phone away that they suddenly go, well, we go in the room. where do we start?
My favorite is they take pictures of the rules and they take pictures of some of the puzzles we have in our lobby area. And then I say to them, you have to lock up your phone. And they go, well, wait, I just took pictures. I thought that was going to help me. I was like, instead of taking a picture of, look, we have a sign, Anatomy of a Lock.
Right.
And it explains how to use the different locks. They take a picture of it. And then when I tell them to lock up the phone, they go, but how am I going to know how to use the lock? And I said, well, why don't you go read the poster instead of just taking a picture of it?
Reading comprehension, brand new concept. What was it when we were kids? RIF, reading is fundamental.
Reading is fundamental. I remember that. Yeah. So the idea of taking technology away when you go into the rooms is to stretch your mind in different ways. Then these days it gets stretched.
Yeah.
So we've got stories. The easiest one is if there's math in the room.
Oh. So I may have told the story before, but I'll tell you anyway. We had a story. One of our rooms had an example of simple math. Adding, subtraction, division, nothing supernatural. And we had a math professor from one of the neighboring schools come in with his family, and they were working through it. And he bangs on the door, and I come in, can I help you? He goes, yeah, your math's wrong. What number did you get? That's wrong. He goes, listen, I'm a math professor. I'm not wrong.
Yeah, hands off.
Like, this is what I do. So I look at his math, and I say, would you mind if I did something really quickly? He goes, how old is your son? 16. Will you do this math for me? The kid goes, comes up with a different number. They open the lock. Well, this math professor, super bright guy, but when's the last time any of us actually did math longhand without a calculator. Or using your phone?
But
right?
his son, because he was in school, still had times when he had to do math without a calculator.
Exactly. So I'm not saying, we don't say that technology is a bad thing. You can collaborate with technology as well, but these rooms are about collaborating with people.
Yeah, we've got one room that has a compass in it, and it's a real compass. It's not a compass on a phone. And every once in a while, we'll get people who ask for hints, and they want to know if they can have their phone so they can use their compass. I'm like, no, you have a compass in your hand. You need to be able to use that compass. Technology is a wonderful thing, but I really think that and we're going to do an episode on the true good of escape rooms, but I think that one of the true goods, if that's good English, that comes from an escape room is that it forces you to do something besides technology. And I think that that's one of the reasons why the rooms become multi-generational, because when you bring in grandma and grandpa who aren't comfortable with technology, they remember the old school way of doing things.
And then that's when their value actually gets heightened.
Yeah.
So communication can be done a lot of different ways. Technology does enhance communication, especially over large areas across a lot of space when you're in different locations. But when you're in the same room, we still have to talk to each other. We still have to work with each other. Technology is only as good as the people using it.
Yep.
So when you take the technology away, it makes the people better.
And
we like to talk about one of the fights we have all the time, not a fight, but it's a conversation with people, is effective versus efficient.
Yes.
This makes you much more effective and you can communicate. Technology is really an efficiency tool.
Absolutely, and it may take you longer.
Yes.
We had one room where they had to add a huge series of numbers, and sometimes it would take them 5 minutes to add all this. It was numbers like 19 and 27, but there were about 8 of them that they had to add up, and it would take them so long that they would get frustrated because they'd have one number off and it wouldn't work, and they'd have to do it again. But they came together to work together on it. So instead of somebody sitting and going, here's the answer, somebody would add it and it wouldn't work, and then somebody else would jump in to help, and then somebody else would jump in to help, and they would go, wait, that number's wrong. And all of a sudden, it's not just that you have people collaborating, but the laughter that we hear in the room is, to me, what I think is one of the greatest joys of taking away the technology. I've seen my kids sit side by side and text to each other. In the rooms, when you hear them really working together, you know that the lack of technology helps with that.
And I don't think that's ever going to go away, by the way. No matter how much technology we use, you're still going to need people. And I think a lost art is people's ability and willingness to sit down next to each other and actually work through something hand in hand. Because we hide behind email, we hide behind text.
Yep.
We do we rather call someone on the phone. I can't say who this person is because I might get in trouble, but sometimes I can't use that example because I don't know who it is. People would rather call you on the phone than talk to you when they're right next to you. And that just blows my mind.
Yeah. Technology is great, and we use technology in the rooms as part of the puzzles. And I know ours happens to be set in the past,
Yes.
so we're set in 1970. So the opportunity to use technology is smaller in our rooms than it is in some of our colleagues. Some of them use technology in fabulous ways to create puzzles that are interesting and that people will find intriguing. But it's not technology that's in the hands of the people who are participating. And I think that's the distinction to make. Technology for the purpose of creating something in the room is great.
Right.
Technology for the purpose of hacking the room, not so good.
Well, listen, I think there's a value to not having it. I think there's a skill set that's necessary. What would happen if all of the computers stopped working?
I think about that sometimes,
Right.
which is kind of weird.
Yeah, so we still need to have some skill set. There's a reason why there's still paper copies of things someplace.
Do they still make atlases?
I don't know if they make them, but I'm sure someone has one somewhere.
I love an atlas. I love reading a map. I think reading a map is a cool thing. As a matter of fact, I'm having some ideas for some new puzzles for an upcoming room. Interesting. So lock up your technology and come and play and be prepared to have to use your brain.
And don't let the lack of technology scare you. It makes it more fun. You'd be surprised how engaged you become when you don't have a crutch, right? And the crutch is technology's made our life easy.
Absolutely.
Right? And sometimes you need to work and get that brain going again just so you remember how to do it.
And if you have a teenager, let them know if they have a panic attack because they have to lock up their phone, you're there for them. Anyway, I'm Sandy Keene.
And I'm Tony Duckett.
And we are the Escape Room Experts.
Bye now.